Welcome to the Art Lady channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make a six-sided snowflake. We're going to start off with a piece of paper, and this is a piece of copy paper. I like using copy paper because it's nice and thin so that we can cut through all those layers. I'm going to take the copy paper, and this is 8 by 11 copy paper, and I'm going to take the 8-inch side and I'm going to fold it down to the 11-inch side right here. So I'm going to show you on my corner. Now when you're folding it over, you want to make sure that this stays at a perfect point. So I'm bringing this edge to meet this edge, and I want this to be a perfect, let me slide that down so you can see it, a perfect point. That's real important. Look where it's coming over on this side. I have a few inches here. So this forms a perfect point. Worry about your point first, making sure these edges match up perfect, and press the crease, and then line up this part. Once this is lined up, line up your other edges here, right to the end. And then crease. What we're actually doing is we're actually just making a perfect square. All the extra is going to be cut off. So go ahead. Oh, my scissors are stuck in here. There. Oops. Oh, we got out of line. Now go ahead and cut off your extra in order to make a perfect square. And now what we're going to do, if you hold this so that the point is up so it looks like a mountain, the long side is near you, we're going to fold this in half straight down the middle, and I'm going to line up the two corners, the 2 points, point to point. Line up the points and then form a crease right there. Now if I were to make a very simple snowflake with only 4 arms to it, I would fold this in half like this. But real snow crystals have 8 sides. So I need to divide this into 3s or thirds. And what I do is I give my students a piece of paper that actually has the thirds drawn on it so that they can measure it to it. But for this purpose, what we do is you can either estimate or take a ruler and mark it into thirds. I'm going to estimate, so I'm just folding this over, thirds, into a third, and I'm going to lightly crease it. Now this, I'm going to fold back, and you can see how I didn't estimate correctly. There's a little bit of a room here. So what I do is I just simply slide this over more, and I'm bringing both over at the same time until it's exactly evened. So you want to make it into thirds and the folds are lining up. So you could measure, or you could just slide and estimate like I just did. And if it's not even, make it even on this side. Press, press, and then make sure this is all evened on this side. You can see I'm off a hair, but that's mainly from this fold here. So this will do. I can pull this back a little bit more if I want to. There. Once you have all of your sides lined up on this side, all of your sides lined up on this side, then I take my scissors, the end of the scissors, and just rub them, just so it crisps up the folds. Now, if you look, you have 2 pieces up at the top that you don't need. So what I simply do is just cut them off. They look like little ears. Cut them off and cut them off. And then this will become our pattern that we use for our snowflake. So what I do now is you just have fun cutting out little shapes. Now, we're cutting through 8 layers of paper to make 6 arms in the snowflake. So when you cut, you don't want to use just the tip. It'll just make the paper twist. You're not going to have any strength there. the power in the scissors is over in here where you have more leverage. And it's going to cut through all those papers. So open up, and I call it a mouth. So it's a nice wide mouth, and put your scissors into the mouth to make your cuts. And then you'll have a lot, it'll be a lot easier for you to cut through all those layers. Now, whatever you're cutting, when you cut, we're cutting through folds. So when you cut out on a fold, whatever you're cutting, here's half right here. Whatever you're cutting on the fold, the other side is going to repeat when you open it up. So think about your designs if you specifically want certain shapes. But I just tell my students just to have fun. And what we do is we start with one cut, and you want to make sure that you go into the middle of your snowflake. So I'm going to go ahead and just make a straight cut, going at least into my middle. Now the next cut, it can be thick, wide, depending on the holes you want. The next cut, you're going to make sure that your cut actually intersects some of the line of the first cut. That way the piece actually falls out. So I want to have it so it intersects, then the piece comes out. My next cuts, and this is the rule that I follow when I'm making snowflakes, is delicate snowflakes. I make it at least 1/8 of an inch from the first cut. 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch from the first cut. I go ahead and make my cut. Now I'm going to come around and make my shape. And then when it intersects, the shape falls off. Now, you can make from a cut, you can do a cut inside a cut. And that's how I make my snowflakes really intricate. So now I'm cutting inside the original cut, and you can make thin shapes. I'm cutting inside the original cut here. This I'll make it like a spike. And here I'm cutting inside. And this is a way of making your snowflakes much more exciting. Now I'm going to work up both sides down here. If I cut long, narrow cuts, this will end up making a fun pattern that goes around, almost like a dotted line. And I'll make a really narrow cut here. This is where you have to be careful. You want to make sure you're at least 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch away from each other. Otherwise, this is just going to fall apart. I'm going to do some half circles down here. And I'll do a half circle opposite. Real small. And when you're doing the smaller areas, you do small chops with your scissor at a time, just to make sure it doesn't go through the whole thing. And now I'm adding little tiny V's down at the bottom. The tip is harder to cut, so I do just simple shapes at my tip. And of course you want to go real small, otherwise it may fall apart. I'll put a little hole in the middle here and one more down here because I like it really lacy. Real small. Now I'm going to work up a little bit bigger shape here. And then this is a fairly large piece, so I can actually make a curve off of here, or a cut off of there. Now at the top, I want to cut down and in, and it's fun to just explore and experiment with this design here. You want to remember that you want to leave some of the original lines showing on the folds. At the top, I don't need to leave my original lines because all of this is just the top of the snowflake, the edge of the snowflake rather. And so I may cut off some of this. I may make it like a spike coming off. So I can cut off some of the original edges at the top because there's no fold at my top. Let me cut in here. There. Now I want to keep original, here's the original lines, so always the original folds you want to keep. This I want to work up a little bit more in here too. Let me do some curve lines coming down. And now I'm going to do a circle here. The more you cut out, the lacier it looks and the more interesting it looks. It's always fun to have a little bit more. And I'm just cutting. And for this, I'm going to cut a spike up here. This kind of makes it the way the crystals form on the snowflake. Sometimes it has these little branches here. And now I'm going to open up the snowflake. Just do it really slow. Sometimes it can rip. Sorry about that. I think I have a dog that wants to go out. So we're opening up slowly. It's kind of interesting. It almost looks like a Japanese tower at the top. This gives me the feeling of like a Japanese pagoda. So there's half. And now the final opening. And then this will give you six sides. Let me bring this up better so you can see. This will give you 6 repeat patterns coming out from that center design. And that's how you do a really lacy, elaborate snowflake. If you like the videos, be sure to subscribe. YouTube has just changed its policy, and we're looking for 1,000 subscribers, and then we'll be able to monetize again. So I appreciate your support, and hope you enjoyed the video.